Good morning, friends. Welcome to the Sense of Things once again this week. We had a week off last week where we had sickness in the family, and that was Ron, and he is back and up and running this week. So glad to be back. Israel and Iran have fought an entire war in the time period that it took us to come back, which was 12 days. We're going to share some cool, fun facts that Ron has. I have one that I'm going to share this morning. And then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the show, which we're going to cover leading economic indicators. Ron's going to share that. I sat and listened to the Pentagon briefing this morning about the strike, and I thought there were some really interesting things that came out of that, and some interesting things I think are going to have some effect on the Iran situation in the future that we've been dealing with. Last but not least, I'm going to cover a little bit on what Wall Street can start worrying about now, because they always have to have something new to worry about. And so what's probably the next thing that they're going to worry about and complain about? So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just 1 second. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Ron, how you doing, bud?
Good morning. Still not 100%, but I'm getting there. Based on what you were just talking about, I'm wrapping up my Q3 newsletter to send out to clients next week. And I was think about what's happened in the last 3 months. Geopolitically, economically, the market, you name it. It's like we crammed a year of news and events
Yeah,
in 3 months.
in 3 months.
I don't know if people, number one, realize what has happened in the last 3 months, and number two, whether it's just at this point it's so passé.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I think people have to get used to the operational tempo of the administration and what's going on. I'm shocked, quite frankly, to even see. We'll talk about the tax deal and stuff like that. I'm shocked to see how fast even that has come together. And I don't know if the Senate's going to get through this, or if they're going to screw it up, and then the House is going to have to, because now the House is whining and complaining about stuff. And I'm like, okay, guys, just get it together. You can always do more stuff down the road. This is not the one and only thing we're doing ever with tax stuff, but I just think it's really interesting to see I agree with you. Just the operational tempo of how much stuff has gone on, and how much stuff, especially on the geopolitics side, holy crap, how much stuff has changed in this very short period of time.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
So what do we got on your end?
So got some fun facts. I found a bunch of these. I got 5 this week, 5 next week.
Okay.
So number one, Walmart loses $3 billion to shoplifting each year.
Yep.
Now that's a hell of a lot of money, but it's only about 1% of their revenue. I think it's less than that actually. But I just think it's amazing that even with all the cameras and they got undercover people, it's still 3 billion
Plus
each year.
they've got retirees standing there at the door as loss prevention.
What are they going to do? Hunt people down? That's not going to happen. All right, next one. When a male penguin falls in love with female penguin, he searches the entire beach to find the perfect pebble to present to her. Now, if that's not love and romance, I don't know what is.
The original pet rock. I was watching something the other day on one of the shows I watch on TV, and they were talking about the pet rock. This is the original pet rock.
Now, my question is, when he finds this and he presents it to her, where's she putting it?
Maybe under an arm. I don't know. Maybe that's what they use to make their nest. That's the cornerstone of their marriage and their new nest.
All right, just figured I'd ask. Next. Now, here's something funny, and I will personally share something. Sleeping with a pillow between your legs may help reduce back and hip pain, improve posture, and keep your spine aligned. I've been doing this for decades.
I have a couple pillows that I use that I lean into because I like to sleep somewhat on my stomach, but I have a cat that sleeps between my legs all night long. So that ensures that I have back pain, my legs are twisted around, my spine is not aligned. Mine does not do like this one where it's sitting over there by the side. He lays directly in between my legs all night long. And this little 8-pound cat is like a radiator. So I
All right,
wake up
next.
sweating in the middle of the night.
Watermelon seeds have one of the highest nutritional content of any seeds. They're
Okay.
higher in protein, good fat, and mineral like magnesium, zinc, and copper. Now, I will tell you, I like watermelon, but the one thing I hated about watermelon was dealing with the
It's
seeds.
dealing with
Now,
the
I know that
sea.
there are people during the fall time frame that do cook pumpkin seeds.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, why don't people cook watermelon seeds?
I don't know. And I don't, if you cook them, does it? The thing I've always laughed about is that people do cook the water or the pumpkin seeds because it's good for your health and all that. But if you cook it, doesn't it get rid of most of the good stuff that's in
The
it? And
nutrients.
I personally, I think they're slimy and nasty myself. But
I agree.
yes,
That's probably why maybe people don't cook them, but you mash them up or whatever.
yeah,
Anyway,
I'm like, or do you just eat them straight up? But I really don't want to.
now this actually, I've heard different numbers, but it takes approximately 66 days
Yep.
for a new behavior to become a habit, whether that's waking up earlier, exercising, changing your routine,
Mm.
66 days. So if you think about it, this is roughly a little over 2 months.
Yep.
That's about right. 2 months of just everyday
Yep.
habitual procedure to do that if you could do it. They talk about 10,000 hours and whatever, but this is the foray to that. You've got
Yeah.
to be able to start somewhere and build up some type of conditioning in order for this to occur. So
Yeah.
I thought this was pretty interesting.
But I think that I use that. There's a book called Micro Habits that I think is just phenomenal. And I implement this into my day. I actually have a little checklist basically in the morning that I follow. And it's just consistently like when people tell you, oh, I don't have time to do a LinkedIn post every day, it's just part of my checklist. Boom, I get in, get that done. Boom. Sometimes I do like a week's ahead of time or something like that. But yeah, there's multiple things on my little checklist every morning that I do. And it just helps me stay, it just helps make it into a habit that you don't even have to think about. So the more you can do that, the better off your life will be in the end.
100%, 100%.
Yep.
Okay. So talking about LEI. Now, LEI, they pulled their call for a recession over a year ago. But here's the interesting thing about the LEI. Just look at the declining number, 21,
Yeah.
straight down.
Yep.
And now they said that it triggered a recession based on the May numbers. Now, what about
Mm.
a year and a half? A year and a half ago, it triggered too, and then they pulled that call a year ago. Now
Mm.
it triggered again. My whole point is what triggered? This thing's been
Yeah.
declining for almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What's the bottom line? I was trying to read here.
the black line is the Coincident Economic Index, their
Yeah.
CPI, which
Yeah.
has been going up. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure necessarily in the relationship to it, but it's the LEI
But
that
it's
people have been paying attention
interesting.
to.
You look at in history. So I'm just as a chartist, you look in history, it's really been both of those having to decline at one time for it to really be triggered as a recession. And I've the CEI I've never really looked at before, but if I look at this chart, I'm like, okay, yeah, the LEI has been declining, which it's really weird because it typically they work together in a lot of cases, but it's CEI just keeps going straight up after the
Well, I think what they're looking
recession.
at is when the LEI crosses down on the CEI, it
Yeah,
caused a recession. Here,
yeah,
I'll leave these, but here it crossed here. That's why they were saying, hey, it triggered.
yep,
But I don't know what triggered it here. I read all the articles, I didn't see it. But
yeah,
drilling down into the numbers a little bit, this is where it gets a little spooky because the market's going up. It's up again today. It's just levitating the momentum. There's wind at its back. It just keeps going. The 10-year is coming down, which is interesting to see. But
mm,
if you're just taking a look at the numbers, ISM is still going negative, right?
yeah,
Consumer expectations are negative for business
mm,
conditions. The work hours are going up. I just some of these things are all over the place. And the last thing, and then you can comment, is just taking a look at the negative 6 month growth rate and contraction in the index. And we're
mm,
just taking a look at it here. And this is where it said the contraction, this is where it triggered. Now, I don't
mm,
have the data on what that specific formula was, But
Yeah.
again, it had all these recession. I know it's only going back 25 years here, but it didn't trigger here or here. It has triggered in other spots. What are your
Mm.
thoughts?
Yeah, I've always been an LEI guy. I've always thought that but something's hinky this time. And it's just not been an accurate predictor of where things are going for
Not the
almost
last
3
3 years.
years. And I don't know if it's so much manipulation by the Federal Reserve and monetary policy and stuff like that, that it's just taken some of this off the wire, or the usual effect that it is. I will tell you, up till about a year and a half ago, I would tell you if it tells me recession, I believe it's recession. And it burned me last year by being a little bit more conservative with portfolios, because I'm like, it always says the right thing, but this has not been the right thing. I think I would now look a little bit closer at the CEI to see if the CEI starts tumping over along with the LEI being down, then that to me says, okay, we're definitely going to face a recession more at
Right.
that point. But some of the stuff that I'll share, one of the points that I'll share this morning on where we are as far as the durable goods were off the charts this morning.
And I will say there's a difference between slowing and contracting. Slowing
Yeah.
is trending down. Contraction means it's getting smaller, reining back. And we've seen contraction in different areas over the last couple of years. There just hasn't been a catalyst. Thought
Mm.
it was going to happen in April with the whole Liberation Day tariff BS, which still needs to get resolved. Only Britain has signed. Other than that, we'll wait till July, 7th or 9th,
Ninth.
find out
Yeah.
when that happens, and we'll go from there. But and then just a couple of other quick things from the LEI report. CEO confidence is at a multi-year low. Over the last 12 months in the CEO index, their expectation of a recession jumped 83%. Now I
Mm.
know it was even worse back in mid-late April before
Yep.
obviously the market came back. And then of course it's the same two issues, the top two issues, tariffs and geopolitical instability back to the beginning of the year. I don't think these two are going to go away for a while, but
Yeah.
we talked about this in one of our last podcasts that if you were a CEO or a CFO, you're a multinational company or you import or you export quite a bit. How do you provide guidance when you don't know where the tariffs are going to be? Because number one, that affects how much you're going to pay for goods. And number
Mm.
two, is that going to contract demand? You don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think it's still not there yet. I think we're getting closer to some kind of answer on a lot of this stuff. And it sounds like there's going to be a flurry of deals coming out here over the next several weeks. We've got to get past our own tax deal and all that. But then, like I said, that flurry of deals that's going to happen here, hopefully in the next month. And I personally think if the administration's close on some of this stuff, it's not going to be hard and fast. Okay, on July 9th. If you're pretty close, okay, we'll keep working and then we'll get the deal done at that point.
Gotcha. What do you got?
Let me share what we got, y'all. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right. A summer fun fact. Most of you know that D-Day anniversary every year is June 6th, 1994. One of the interesting facts, I was sitting here, I saw this come up today, and I said, I love this picture because you've got reenactors, you've got a veteran, and then you've got currently serving members of the U.S. Army. I was just kind of looking at sleeve patches, and actually this looks 17th Airborne Division or something like that. So these guys are active duty paratroopers hanging out with a paratrooper here. I just decided, you know what? Let me Google how many Normandy veterans are left. And Ron and I were talking about this at the beginning of the conversation today. It's surprising. There's still the estimated 61,000 D-Day or Normandy veterans. I don't think it's just D-Day. I think it's Normandy veterans that are left still, which means these guys have all got to be up in their mid to late 90s at this point, and they're still hanging out there. Talk about the greatest generation. They just keep on coming. And they won't stop. If you know a veteran of Normandy and you're connected with them, please cherish them while we still have them, get their stories, whatever else you can do. All right, so let's move on to the next. This morning, during our little hiatus of a week, like I said, an entire war was fought and ended during that time period, largely ended on June 22nd, 2025, by what's called Operation Midnight Hammer. And I would highly, if you're interested in any of this, I would highly recommend, you can probably find it on X or somewhere on YouTube, watching the morning briefing from today with our 4-star general Dan Raisin Kane. He actually gave possibly the best briefing I've been through military briefings. They're usually boring as dishwater. This probably was the best military briefing I've ever heard in my life. He brought it down to the point of even the people that were on the ground that took the incoming in Qatar. He broke it down to what it was like for them. And it was really good. But one of the things that they laid out during this briefing was the fact that the 14 bombs, the massive ordnance penetrators, I think they're the GBU 57s or whatever it is, what they actually laid out and told everybody this morning is this is something we've actually been watching the Fort Dow plant or the Fort Dow facility being built for the last 15 years. There's been a team that's watched that whole thing. And these bunker buster bombs were actually created specifically for the purpose of blowing up this facility. Ron and I were talking about this. Why are we sharing so much information? I personally think it's more of, you know what, guys, we've got these capabilities and we'll use them if we have to try and lighten up some of the geopolitical issues that are out there. What's your thoughts, Ron?
Yeah, it's basically to say, hey, look, we have the bigger stick, a big knife.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that could be part of it too. To say, hey, look, we're going to use these again. We showed you that where it was successful. Get it. Basically, what you want to try to say is, right, why do we move aircraft carriers to certain parts of the world? Not because we want to use them. We're just trying to show people, hey, we're here, we're close by, and we're going to show force if we need to. All this is a potential future deterrent to say, we don't want to use these again, but we want to show you how we use them. So if we need to use them, just to let you know if it's potential and capability. Yeah. I get it. I get it. But there are so many things, and I know Trump said this a long time ago. You never discuss strategy. I understand this is post-event, but my point is, you basically showed them step by step, tick for tick, exactly how this was laid out, how it was executed, and the aftermath. People, future enemies can use that to say, how do we counter that?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I agree. But once again, I think it shows the strategy of let's take out, and it got the Iranians supposedly to the table to negotiate. They're getting their butts kicked nonstop. So I mean,
we'll see how long it lasts. But
I mean, the thing is, their entire Air Force is basically gone at this point. They have no anti-aircraft weapons at all left.
But they still have about 1,500 to 2,000 missile launchers pointed at Israel.
Yeah, I personally don't.
Even though they got rid of half, they still have 1,500 to 2,000 left.
Yeah, but I think the problem is you're seeing weaker and weaker as it's been going on, weaker and weaker. They just don't have the capability to bring more of those online. And I think that's going to be a big part of this. Whatever gets worked out is, okay, guys, you're not going to start rebuilding all this stuff and giving it to your proxies and all that. I just think it takes a big issue out of the Persian Gulf area and starts to get us moving in maybe some kind of agreements. God forbid we not fight in the Middle East for the next 5 years at least. Just wanted to share that. I thought it was just a really interesting thing. Okay, so what have we got to worry about now? Of course, we've got the one beautiful bill, which is big, and it's not necessarily beautiful, but it's something and it's a step in the right direction. So I think that's going to be the next thing people worry about and Wall Street worries about. I think the next thing after that is the trade stuff, and they'll worry about that. What does that mean? It just means I think we could still see a few more months of this up and down. Every few days, the news cycle has got to worry about something else and something new. So I don't think it's all up from here. I think we're in a better geopolitical position than we've been. We've still got to do something with the Russia and Ukraine issues and get that off. I think hopefully with NATO's commitment to everybody throwing a few more dollars in, it will help to move that in the right direction and get that war over and the meat grinder of that mess to stop. And hopefully we will get to some form of peace before year end and all around the world. And we can actually focus on doing good things like making money and everybody not dying.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not crazy about some of the items in the bill. The one main thing I'd like to see them do away with is taxes on Social Security.
Yeah.
That should go through. I'm not happy about some of the other things. We won't outline all those.
Yeah. No, and I think no tax. I have always said this. It is important to me that we tax people's Social Security check. It came from a tax originally.
Double taxation.
Yeah. Why are we taxing it again when it comes out? And why are we taxing it more for people that make more money? Once again, and I absolutely, and I'll stop my rant, stop calling it a entitlement program. It's not an entitlement. People put their money, the government took the money away and kept it for 40, 50 years before you got to use it. That's not entitlement. That's my money back.
You're entitled to it.
Yes.
If you put money into it all the years. There's a lot of people that put very little in and are getting larger amounts for other reasons that I'd rather
that's how the system works. And yes, whatever. But once again, if you've paid into it in any way, shape, or form, it is not an entitlement. You're getting your money back. And the government kept it for a very long period of time. And we can argue that different ways. Okay, last couple things I thought were interesting. Durable goods orders this morning off the freaking charts. It was expected to be up, I think it was up 7% because they expected some durable goods orders out of the aircraft industry and things like that. Way off the charts, up 16.4%. It was driven by aircraft, military stuff, computers, things like that. I don't think, and the argument is, oh, it's got to be because of tariffs. You don't go buy airplanes because of tariffs. It says that there's something going on from that perspective. Even without transportation, it was up like 0.5%. It was expected to be zero. So great. Jobless claims, initial claims dropped to 245. They were expected to be at 255. That's good. I just see as, okay, that's staying in check. It's been that same thing for a while, and we're not seeing unemployment go up or jobless claims go up. Good news on those fronts. We've still got a lot of stuff to go at this point, but I think it's moving in the right direction in some of those aspects.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Sometimes you get the summer doldrums, you get a summer rally in the market. August is the big vacation month for Wall Street. If there's no geopolitical stuff, I think we continue to rally here. But I think we're just going to rally to rally. And I think corporate earnings aside, we're going to rally. But I will want to see what happens July 9th with the tariff situation, because I think that will foster either conversation or direction for many of the corporate announcements for those multinationals. If I had to guess, I think they're going to kick the can down the road another 30 to 60 days.
Yeah, I could probably see that happening just for the simple fact these are complicated things. And I think the biggest thing is everybody's so focused on the number. Oh, we'll know what this country is going to pay or whatever. I think the bigger part of these negotiations, and I think what's taking a little bit longer, is the other side of the coin, which is opening up some of these markets more to U.S. companies, because there's been a lot of restriction against just beef alone. Like we haven't been able to sell our beef into England or into the European Union. They've been very protectionist about that. And they come up with all the BS of, oh, it's because of you guys use antibiotics and blah, 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 blah. No, you're just trying to protect your beef industry in those countries. So I get it. I understand. But I think there's going to be more of that opportunity for us to sell into those markets. And I think that in the end is going to be the biggest thing that comes out of this. The numbers and whatever the tariffs are, it really doesn't matter. But I think
we'll do our podcast in 2 weeks because next week's July 4th.
Yep.
But the interesting thing is by the time we do the next podcast, we'll do a mid-year review.
Mhm.
July 7th to July 9th will be right there.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. A lot to talk about midway. Also, I will update the S&P targets by the analysts.
Nice.
Couple of revisions in the last week.
Of course.
And it's the typical usual suspects that are
Yep.
always revising.
Let's just keep moving it around and we'll look like we always are every year. We were right on the money.
Unbelievable.
You've only changed your
So
mind
we'll
12
see, but
times.
it'll be good. It'll be a good conversation.
Perfect. Folks, we're here for you. Enjoy your July 4th and enjoy Independence Day. Get out, wave a flag, hopefully an American flag. We just saying, but let's enjoy those holidays. We're kicking off summer. Just kicked off summer the other day. We're now on the backside of the daylight, so now we're getting shorter and shorter every day. But enjoy it while we still have it, and we will see you guys back here the very next time.